Is Lance Stroll really that bad? Fans love pouring hate on poor old Lance Stroll. Is it because he is truly as rotten as the 6-month-old tomato you forgot in the fridge? Or is it because he's a soft target? Before getting into this any further, please consider pressing the subscribe button to the channel and leaving a comment in the comment section. It really does do wonders for us smaller channels and gets the old algorithm going. Yes, Dad's Cash has the safest seat in F1 mainly because his daddy owns Aston Martin. But is that the only reason he made it to the grid in the first place? It's often forgotten that the Canadian does have 3 podiums and a pole position to his name, achieved at Williams and Racing Point, and of course Aston Martin, which Racing Point later became. Not teams that cause the opposition to break out in fear-induced panic attacks because of their pace. It is too easy to only point at his admittedly plentiful mistakes and call him rubbish. Bear with me and let's have a look at the son of the boss's performances at the pinnacle of motorsport and then agree if he is indeed as crap as is popularly believed. In an attempt to be fair, let's have a look at the Prince of Aston Martin under the following points, in comparison with another, albeit much more popular driver. Compared to his teammates, his results when not driving for Dad, and what he possibly inadvertently did to bring massive value to Formula 1. Number 1. Lance Stroll versus Nico Hulkenberg. The grief Stroll gets pretty much equals the love Hulk gets. And yes, I realize that is also caused by the huge difference in their attitudes, with one seeming to be a humble, competent driver with a good sense of humor who seemingly cannot buy a break, possibly because some little prat's dad already bought all the breaks for the other one. Hulk is 37, married, has 239 race starts for almost every mid to lower tier team on the grid, a single podium, 2 fastest laps and 1 pole position together with 608 career points is what he has to show for his trouble so far. Lance Stroll is 26, has 177 race starts and has been known to date models like sons of billionaires tend to be able to do. 3 podiums, 1 pole and 312 points are what he has achieved so far racing for Williams and then Daddy's teams under different names. Interestingly, Stroll was actually born Lance Strollovich but prefers to use Stroll for reasons I really don't care about. I always imagined though that his name would be Lancelot, but I have been deeply disappointed to not be able to find any proof of that. In comparison with Hulk, Stroll has not been great but not been terrible either. Facing facts, neither driver has had very competitive equipment, possibly barring a couple of years ago when Alonso had that green machine on the podium so delightfully often. Hulkenberg would have loved to have had Stroll's 3 podiums, and both have a very surprising pole position to their name. While Strollovich has 0 fastest laps and Hulk has 2, which is kind of impressive, if only looking at their careers in comparison to each other. And remember, Hulk also had that time in a not too bad Renault, and he also raced for Force India, which later became Aston Martin and Williams. Then Stroll hasn't done too bad a job, averaging 1.76 points per race start to Hulk's 2.54. Yes, he certainly has not set the world alight, but he has been able to produce the odd, very impressive performance notwithstanding the more plentiful mistakes, showing in his podium and some point-scoring performances that there is definite ability somewhere behind the wheel, certainly more so than someone like, say, a Mazepin or even a Logan Sargent managed to show. 2. Lance Stroll versus teammates. And Poof! There goes any possible doubt over the abilities of Lancelot Strollovich in his Formula One career. In his 8 seasons as a driver in F1 before 2025, Stroll has only outscored a teammate once over a complete season. And who was that teammate? Mr. Sergey Sirotkin. In the 2018 Williams, Stroll beat Sirotkin by 6 points to 1. Impressively, after 12 rounds of the current 2025 season, Stroll manages to lead Fernando Alonso, a double world champion, by 20 points to 16. Very few though would put money on Alonso not closing the gap and beating Sir Cash come the end of the season. Stroll has had many a teammate over the years, some better than others, multiple world champions like Vettel and Alonso, race winners like Sergio Perez, and they've all combined, except for Sirotkin, to soundly beat Stroll over a season. And most of them have been sacked for their trouble by Stroll Sr. and replaced, while Lancelot himself remains the one constant at Aston Martin. 3 results for Williams, or they're not a team owned by Daddy. And immediately we go back to a team owned by Daddy. Stroll raced for Prima Power Team in Formula 3 in 2015, winning a race, scoring 6 podiums to finish 6th in the title race against drivers including Russell, Leclerc and Albon. In 2016 he continued for the team, where his daddy of course was one of the owners, and as Wikipedia puts it, and I quote, he won the first race at Paul Ricard before taking a record 13 more race victories over the season, including 5 consecutive victories in the final 5 races. He claimed the title with 4 races to go and ended the season a record 187 points clear of nearest competitor, end quote, which led to his drive at Williams for 2017, seemingly on merit, despite claims that his teammate was ordered to let him win. On merit, I just said, or seemingly on merit, but probably not. Not only on merit, he did win the title very convincingly in Formula 3. But Lawrence Stroll, Daddy, from Daddy's cash, was rumored to have paid around $80 million to Williams to have his boy race for the team Frank built, and apparently Lawrence sponsored. Stroll Jr. crashed on debut in practice, starting his first race with a grid penalty due to destroying his gearbox in said crash and retiring from the race to have a less than awe-inspiring debut. And yet he finished on the podium a few races later in Baku to become the youngest driver bar Max Verstappen to score his first podium at just 18 years old. He ended the season just behind teammate Felipe Massa in the driver's title. The next season he partnered Sirotkin and beat him with 6 points to 1, but Sirotkin managed to outqualify Stroll in 12 of 21 races. Again, Stroll managed to show promise and disappoint at the same time. 4. Super license requirements. So now it seems cut and dried. Stroll is lower than Snake Doody on the Formula 1 ability ladder, and yet somehow this man has a super license, which leads to the question, how does one acquire this license and be allowed to drive one of these low-flying rockets? It's no mean feat to acquire this license, and most of us would probably fail worse than the ANC has at governing South Africa at acquiring this license. To get a Formula 1 super license, you must be at least 18 years old, hold a valid international grade A competition license, pass a FIA theory test on F1 sporting codes and regulations, and you need to have completed at least 80% of 2 full seasons in listed single-seater championships and accumulated at least 40 points within the last 3 years in those championships. Additionally, drivers must have completed 300 kilometers in a representative Formula 1 car. Now, having seen old footage from the Top Gear guys and even Vladimir Putin failing to keep a Formula 1 car on track, and also having seen Brad Pitt drive the living hell out of a McLaren Formula 1 car, I'm left somewhat confused on whether the 300 kilometer thing is difficult or easy. I don't think I could do it, but I mean, if Brad Pitt could do it, he's a friggin' actor. Then of course I remember Mazepin, Sargent, and King Latifi, and now I feel it's possibly easier than it looks. Less easy though are the 40 points that you have to achieve in the championships that the FIA set out, and the 80% of the 2 seasons completed, for which you do need definite ability behind the wheel. Bonus: some of his more impressive recent mistakes, just for fun. The Sao Paulo Grand Prix had Sir Cachalot, as motorsportweek.com so eloquently put it, attempting to rejoin a soaked track via a gravel trap and beaching his car, actively ignoring the tarmac available. 2023 in Singapore, he crashed heavily in qualifying, destroying his car. 2024 in Saudi, he crashed out of the race on lap 7, causing a safety car. Recent incidents also include a crash in free practice 2 at the Canadian Grand Prix, where he hit the wall at home on his first flying lap, and a prior incident in Saudi, where he clipped the wall as well, leading to a suspension break and subsequent crash. He also had a major crash during quali in Singapore in 2023, which resulted in his withdrawal from the race. As stated earlier, also in 2023, he famously managed to break both his wrists while riding a bicycle. 5. Is Dad's cash the reason Lawrence Stroll bought a Formula One team? Rumored to be worth just under $4 billion, Lawrence Stroll is not exactly classified as needy. After making his fortune in fashion, Stroll bought Prima Racing in 2014 and employed his son as driver. For the F3 team, he also famously blocked moves for George Russell and Lando Norris to keep young Lancelot as the team's focal point. In 2018, Stroll Sr. bought Force India and renamed it to Racing Point, and in 2019 he brought Dad's cash in as driver, where he has remained since. Here I believe Stroll Sr.'s ability and business sense, combined with his desire to help his boy achieve his dreams, and in 2020 Stroll led U3 Investments Consortium to invest £182 million into Aston Martin for a stake in the company, and since then he has spent massively in infrastructure, drivers, and in poaching competent crew from other teams, building a very impressive team, even luring Adrian Newey to the team in green. Stroll Jr. is seen as the team's current weak point by many, with teammate Alonso having out-qualified him in every race this season, despite being in his 40s. Stroll has been consistently beaten by Alonso in every facet except points, where the Spaniard's legendary bad luck has stopped him from scoring. Stroll famously beached his car on the parade lap in Brazil, nonchalantly saying, "Yeah, I'm beached," over the radio, contributing to his reputation as a spoiled brat, recently calling the car something akin to crap, despite his team's best efforts to keep him going, thus doing nothing for morale. Broadcaster Mervi Kallio said about interviewing Stroll, and I quote, "In those situations, he seems quite arrogant. He comes to the interview with a listless attitude. It's embarrassing because he doesn't seem to want to show any part of himself or even be there," end quote. Stroll's career can only be summed up as Jekyll and Hyde-ish in nature. His podium at age 18 in a less than awe-inspiring Williams being overshadowed by a plethora of mistakes, mostly unforced. Time and time again, Strolovic has shown he has real ability behind the wheel, only to make a silly mistake like grounding his car for no reason to erase all memories of his positive achievements and replace them with giggles at his failures. In summary, yes, Stroll deserves most of the criticism that comes his way, but not for the seemingly obvious reasons. Numerous times he has shown genuine ability driving the cars, but does seemingly not have the mental fortitude or even desire to constantly perform. Maybe if he had the pressures of possibly being sacked if he fails to perform, and if he didn't have the $4 billion cash cushion daddy bill to fall back on, he might have been more inspired to be consistent and maybe even been pressured into becoming a much better driver than he currently seems to be. As a former Williams team manager said on YouTube, and I quote, "You could argue that Lance Stroll is the greatest pay driver of all time, because yes, he's there because his dad is paying all the bills, but at least his dad has gone out and created a new team out of an old one, Aston Martin. The payment for Lance to be in Formula One has been a very constructive thing, and it's given a lot of jobs to a lot of people, and it's a whole new thing. So in that sense, you've got to say, wow, that's the perfect use of being a pay driver, and he's got a reasonable amount of talent as well." End quote. I could not put it any better myself. Thank you for watching. God bless and goodbye.